This is Corey Jones with the Be Ready with Safety Man podcast. Join us every week for a new podcast. Follow us everywhere podcasts are played and on YouTube, Be Ready with Safety Man. This is Corey Jones. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Corey Jones. I'm here with Anthony Cicali. Today we're going to talk about verbal de-escalation, specifically verbal judo. And I know Anthony, my buddy's been reading the book. So tell me where you are in the book and what you wanted to talk about today with verbal judo. There it is.
There it is. So I picked this up. We have a little library at work with some good reading material, and I saw this, and then coincidentally saw that you were doing it too. I said, "Oh, this would be a great podcast." So I started reading this, Verbal Judo by Dr. George Thompson. I'm about 3/4 of the way done, probably actually a little more now. I'm pretty much almost done now. I only have about 20 more pages to go in the book. But so far, it's been really good. A lot of things I think that I've known about, I just never really put a name on it. And so I realized, you know what, you're already doing this. I started reading it and I was like, with everything going on right now, not only in just the police world, first responders, but healthcare workers, dealing with frontline situations. People are obviously a little more hostile, upset about things happening right now. Even businesses that are dealing with people, restaurants that are dealing with maybe angry customers and things like that right now coming for takeout services. I think this book would probably be more beneficial than ever.
Yeah, exactly. What I found was I read the book before I went to the instructor course, and I became an instructor, as you know, back in November. And I've taught a couple of classes along with the head instructor. One is with the United States Air Force, some of their special operations groups, and then we taught Austin Police Department, which has made it a department-wide philosophy, which means that from the chief and the director on down, every officer has that philosophy trained in them from the academy level through in service all the way till they retire, which is good. Some police agencies would take their problem officer who maybe doesn't have the skills that you and I would have of being able to deal with people and rationalize and give them a little bit of patience and empathy and try to send one officer. And this really isn't designed to take one person out of a group of people because then no one's going to know how to evaluate, how to read this officer's video or audio reports and kind of see what's going on. So when verbal judo as a system being taught by a qualified instructor and it's adopted as a philosophy for an entire agency, organization, business, hospital, or anything like that, you tend to get a lot more buy-in and a lot more success.
Yeah, and the one thing that I kind of got in here was that the one thing in the goal of verbal judo is that it's about trying to make both parties benefit from a confrontation, right? So I think
Yes.
today, in today's policing world, I think some officers forget that we still do have discretion. We still have the ability to talk through situations and try to find a peaceful resolution. It doesn't always have to be lock them up, get the stats, get the numbers. That's not really the main goal, and it shouldn't be of a community policing department or any kind of healthcare. It shouldn't just be, get as many patients as you possibly can and get through the day. It should be how many can you actually help and talk to and benefit from both sides. And so treating verbal judo as confrontation management, I guess you would say, where that person, at the end of the day, maybe they are going to get arrested, but they are compromising. They're not giving you problems. Then you have less complaints. You have less injuries of officers or even healthcare workers because they're able to resolve issues, and that's kind of what I got out of it. But it takes practice. It's something that you have to work at. It's not like you read the book and then like boom, it's there. You're gonna have to put it into play.
Yeah, and that's the main difference between reading a book and then actually having a qualified instructor come out because we do actually do a lot of role playing where you as the student would be both the officer or the healthcare worker or the administrator, and then you would also get a chance to play and emulate the person having the problem and reacting the way you think that you might react if you were having the problem, you know. And one thing about Doc Thompson, just to go a little bit back about how he started this. He's actually has a doctorate degree in philosophy and literature, and he decided he really wanted to give back to the community and help, so he became a volunteer reserve officer, as you know from the book. And if you remember, his first midnight shift, he went out and locked up 3 people, but had to use quite a bit of force. So he gets a call in the morning from the chief, thinking that he's going to get a commendation. And he actually kind of got yelled at and said, "That's not the way we do it." So he goes, "Well, chief, how do we do it?" They had no answer for him. So that was the impetus that he used his communication skills that he learned from college and being a professor, and then the skills that he learned from dealing with people on the street, and then created Verbal Judo over 30 years ago. And since then, we've trained over 1 million people around the world. Some of our clients, like I said, the United Nations Police in New York, which is a very, think about how difficult it would be to train them. Think about the power dynamics of trying to be a law enforcement agency in the United Nations where just about everybody has diplomatic immunity, just about everybody has different cultures, customs, who is supposed to be subservient to whom. There's so many issues there. And we were able to design a course that worked with them so they could have to tell the king of a certain country or the prime minister of another country that, hey, you can't go into this room, or you can't touch this, piece of material, and so forth. So verbal judo is wide ranging. And the other thing I want officers to remember is this isn't just about talking. The first whole day we spend on actually an acronym called SAFER, which tells you when verbal judo is not working, when it's not time to talk, when it's time to act. And ACT stands for actions consistent with training. So that act may be to arrest, it may be to use deadly force, mechanical force, a taser, or it may be to disengage until you get back up. So we do spend a lot of time trying to keep officers, healthcare workers, Fortune 500 company businesses, everybody. Our main goal is safety. Our secondary goal is to reduce complaints and increase compliance.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that you have to take into consideration is, especially officers or even healthcare workers or any kind of customer service or anything that they're dealing with the public, you got to kind of make that safety evaluation. Oh, are you sharing the screen there?
Yeah, yeah, real quick, I was going to show
Oh, okay.
my.
One thing you have to realize is that not everyone's going to be receptive to these ideas. So if someone's under the influence of drugs or too much alcohol, or there's mental health issues, you trying to emphasize that everything's going to be okay and that you can figure out a plan here, it's not going to work. So you have to make that safety decision first, like what's going on here. So picking up on body language of this person and what they're doing. Okay, now I know this person's under the influence. This normal banter that I could have with someone else might not work here. So safety is definitely something you have to take into consideration right away. Who you're dealing with and what specifically mindset they are in before you can act. So I like that. The one thing I kept coming across in this book, and at the same time, I was telling you a little bit about this before. I started the master's class with Chris Voss, who is the FBI hostage negotiator. He does a master's class. So I started doing that, his class. And the word that he uses and the word that I keep seeing in the book is the word empathy. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that means kind of to you and on your side?
Yeah, empathy is probably two top, one or two top concepts that verbal judo stresses. It is not to be confused with sympathy. We're not necessarily feeling bad for these people because of the choices they made, but empathy means being able to put yourself into their shoes and try to identify how they would be feeling or how you would feel under similar situations. We use that sentence a lot when we're actually talking to people. Say, "Sir, I understand that you're upset, and I probably would be too under similar circumstances. But let's see if we can go outside and work this out." And that shows the person that you care, you identify, you validate their feeling. Not necessarily validate their actions and activities, but you validate their feeling and you say it back to them. So that empathy, that empathetic listening, sometimes we call it tactical listening, is really huge. And it's funny. I just put on Facebook not too long ago about how I'm a verbal judo instructor and I want healthcare places to hire me to come out and train them. And somebody goes, verbal judo only works if somebody's in the proper state of mind. It doesn't work if they're out of control. So, of course, that's the exact opposite of why verbal judo was created. You don't need verbal judo for your average customer or your average client. you need verbal judo when somebody's out of control. So that empathy, when you can identify with what their feeling is, and then going back to what you said earlier, somebody's under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or an emotionally disturbed person, they still have some sort of goal and they still have some sort of problem. And the goal is to empathize and paraphrase what they're saying to find out A, what they want, and B, work together to find a mutually agreed upon solution. Again, as you exactly said, that enforces the law, keeps everybody safe, and then builds that social bank of trust. So when we deal with that person or those witnesses again, they'll remember that the officers were empathetic.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Um, what other aspects have you seen? Like I said, I wrote down some like police, healthcare. We've talked about them. What other I mean, I put down teachers. I mean, like what other aspects do you see this working on as well? Military, obviously, I guess. Where else does this fit into besides? Because I think it was initially designed for police, but it's kind of branched out from there, from what
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah. So we're bringing in people. We're bringing in doctors. We're bringing in or people from the medical profession. We're bringing in people from places that deal with people that are emotionally disturbed or have brain injuries. So they operate under a completely different set of emotional urges and impulses than even an intoxicated person would do. So we're bringing in experts in all those different fields to help us specifically design a program that 75% of it is verbal judo, but we may have to change the language. We may have to change what the goal is that we're looking at. So instead of doing the 8 step car stop, well, it would start out with, "Hey, I'm sorry, sir, ma'am. My name is Sergeant Jones from the Mount Laurel Police Department. And the reason I stopped you is you're doing 75 and a 60. Is there any lawful reason for your speed, sir?" So what that does, it gives you the why, it identifies who I am, what my authority system is, and it causes you to have to answer the question. And what I found for doing it for 15 years is 90% of the people don't argue, and about 80% admit to, "Oh, I didn't know what the speed limit was." And that's on audio, video. We write it on the back of the summons. So it's really a benefit. And the second benefit for law enforcement and anybody else is if it's one thing to tell you what not to say, right? We can always tell our officers, our healthcare workers, our employees, our team members, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Verbal judo does better than that. We actually give you almost a script of what you want to say, an 8 step encounter of, "Hey, I'm the administrator for this hospital, and I find that you're in an area that you're not supposed to be. Is there any lawful reason for you to be here? Is there any reason why you're here?" When we did it for the military, picture you're an airman guarding a hangar and you see somebody inside of it. Instead of going up, pointing your weapon at them, "Hey, get down, what are you doing?" Unless it's a safer violation and you have to act and it's dangerous, maybe you want to go, "Hey, I'm Airman Jones from the Phoenix Ravens, and I see you're in an area that's off limits and classified. Is there any reason for you to be here?" "Oh, I'm the general's daughter, and he said to meet him here because he was going to show me the plane." Well, you certainly don't want to point your weapon at the general's daughter because we know how that's going to end. But you got your point across, and it gave you the ability to build that social trust and maybe even get a combination.
Yeah, I think the one thing I take away from verbal judo is just learning how to open dialogue because I
Hmm.
think especially this book was written early 90s, and it's funny because I feel like it almost relates more. It's 20 years almost later since the initial book, the initial first printing was put out. I feel like it's almost more practical today than it was 20 years ago. Like today, people are like this all day. People are looking at their phone, da, 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 and people don't know how to conversate. They just go out and they're like, okay, just lock them up or just give them the ticket. Don't say anything. People that know how to talk, people that have communication that can sit there for an extra minute, 2 minutes, and just emphasize, hey, this is what's happening today. This is why I'm here. I think that's a great point from the book, and it just shows people because people are more outwardly passive today than they are, I would say, and they're afraid to even encounter someone or speak to them, or they don't know how to handle those situations. So it's funny that we have to have a class where we teach people how to actually talk to one another because it's almost like it's a dying skill to have. People don't know how to do it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that they stress in the actual class and when we train is that the newer generation, the 25-year-olds and younger, aren't used to making decisions. They make decisions by putting it on social media and waiting for 15 friends to say what to do and what not to do. And our job as professionals, whether it be a hospital administrator, a business owner, a store owner in a COVID situation where one of the customers refuses to social distance or wear a mask or wait until only 10 more people are allowed in the store. We need to be able to empathize with that person, determine what the goal is that we need, give them reasonable options, and let them know what failure to take the proper option is going to be, but really stress that positive option in a positive way. But we're always ready to act if there's a safer violation. And I always want to stress that we verbal judo never wants anyone to talk when it's time to act, ever at all. We want you to act to be safe. That's always the first and foremost goal. And the second thing is just the other day, I was asked to give a presentation similar to this to the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce Health Issues Council. And there's about 15 people on there, and they're really interested in getting this type of verbal judo training all the way from the top down because of COVID-19. And just think about the dynamics of that. Heaven forbid a family member has to go in and their significant other or child suspected of being COVID positive, and now they have to be quarantined, and you can't see them for at least 14 days. You have no idea what's going on. You're maybe not even to make medical decisions, or you'll even have input in medical decisions. And what the hospital administrators are finding out is because their workers are stressed, their workers are stretched thin. There's not a lot of people for them to tap to get that. So that administrator who may be able to talk to somebody may be busy. So we need everybody to learn how to realize, okay, if I'm emotionally involved in it, maybe I need to get Anthony to come and talk to this person because I'm emotionally involved as a administrator. So that's all those things that verbal judo tries to do is is is, is take the energy level of the situation down.
I think another thing too, especially if it's like that situation you're talking about, is I think learning from what I some examples, learning just to try to talk to people with respect and dignity, right? Like that's two keys. I mean, you don't have to say, okay, that's fine that you're doing that. You know, you can totally disagree with them, but at least you're giving them respect and the dignity of the situation. We talked a little bit before about Ferguson and how that, kind of in the end, they found that it was justified, that whole situation. But the problem was the whole situation of respect and dignity wasn't there for the years building up to that situation. And it was, it exploded when something happened. So, same thing with the healthcare world. A nurse or a doctor might be right in treating someone the way that they did, but did they give the person the respect and dignity they deserved? Especially family members dying and things like that. Like, are they just treating them like another bed, another number, or are they treating them, like a person that has feelings and
Yeah.
emotions?
So that's
Yeah,
two also fantastic points that we talk about in verbal judo. One is what you said about Ferguson. There's something that verbal judo likes to call the bank, the social bank of trust. And we as law enforcement always want to make sure that we're depositing as much social trust and respect as we can in every interaction. So the people we talk to, even if we have to enforce the law, we want to do it with dignity and respect and fairness and discretion. So heaven forbid we do have a controversial shooting like that Ferguson shooting, which turned out to be justified, but there was a lot of lies in the beginning, a lot of disinformation, and it was a powder keg waiting because Ferguson Police Department had a negative balance in their bank of social trust. So what I like to teach when I teach verbal judo to law enforcement specifically is every interaction we need to be making a deposit into that bank of social trust. As law enforcement officers, we go to parties, we hear cop stories, and it's almost always the negative story. Well, this cop did this and this cop did that. My goal when I train people, is I want those positive stories. Oh, their officer is really nice. He did that. And then the second thing that we talked about with verbal judo and administrators is uh, seeing it with empathy from the other person's perspective, like we talked about earlier. It's just having that empathy. We maybe have dealt with this 100 times, but this is this family's first time dealing with this. It's traumatic. They have no information. They have no control, and we need to actually stop, slow down, and give them all the options and all the information. I want to just put one more thing up on the screen because we keep talking about verbal judo in this COVID world, and we have very specific classes, as you can see up here, that we have webinars that are specifically for COVID-19 related de-escalation. We can do small groups following CDC guidelines, or we can do it, virtually online. And again, as you see, what I talked about safer, the mission of Verbal Judo is to create a safer world. And you see that's an acronym by delivering practical and easy to learn strategies which empower people to effectively de-escalate conflict and potential violence. So we're able to do that virtually, and we can do that, in person, practicing social distancing.
So as I was reading through the book, a couple things before we get out of here. As I was reading through the book, the one thing that popped in my head, and it's kind of always stuck with me, if you remember the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. So the one philosophy that Patrick Swayze has is like, just be nice. Like, he's in this hostile environment. He comes in with this new idea, and everyone's like, that's not gonna work. That's what reminded me of Verbal Judo. They're like, that's not gonna work. Talking to people, this, that, and the other. He's like, just be nice. Just be nice. And he's like, well, what happens, when it's, it gets to this point? He's like, well, then we take it outside and it's time not to be nice. Like, it gets to that point eventually. Sometimes you can't stop it, but at least try this method until then. So we'll tell Daniel when he's doing the editing on this, maybe he could drop a quick Patrick Swayze clip in here.
Be nice. Come on. If somebody gets in your face and calls you a sucker, I want you to be nice. Okay.
Well, you just gave me an idea, because the next time I teach a class, I'm actually going to use that clip in there too. Be nice, because if you remember what we said, be nice until it's time to act. You have a safety violation, then we act. We can still act nice, we can still act appropriate. We don't need to use profanity. We can do all that stuff, but we're acting, and with our actions consistent with training.
Yeah. A couple things before we leave as well. Social media ideas. Some people from Twitter were tuning in when I put the idea out here that we were doing this conversation this week. Jen from Twitter said that one of the things that she's worked for her in the past is just lowering your voice and talking softly, like de-escalating the sound of your voice.
Yes, reducing the energy in the situation. So if two people are yelling and then the officer comes in and he starts screaming, one, we kind of attack the pride of the people in there. If I go into somebody's private home, or if I'm a healthcare worker, or if I'm a business owner and I come out and I start yelling and pointing at people, that really attacks their pride. So now we have two problems. You have the initial problem that they were concerned about, and now we have the problem of me attacking their pride. So if I can come at them with, excuse me, sir, ma'am, you have 1 second for me? Just let me know when you have 1 second. I just need to see if I can help you resolve this situation, if that's okay with you, right? Just like you said, lowering the temperature, lowering that aggression in the room. We don't need that. There may be a time and a place where, as well as I do, when I need to tell people to, hey, shut up, sit down, stop moving, for a safer violation. But other than that, if I can come out, excuse me, sir, ma'am, my name's Corey. I'm with the business here, and they said that there was a problem with social distancing that maybe we didn't explain right to you. What is it that you misunderstood that we can make your experience better for you? Taking the blame a little bit, and then giving them some pride to back down in front of their friends, family, or everybody else in there. So that's a great question that she asked.
The other one was Tina from Twitter also said, she said that humor can work too, just to soften the mood as well.
Yeah, I've used humor a couple of times. I don't know if I remember any of the actual jokes, but there was this one guy that was in the army, and he was really, really upset. And giant guy. I mean, this guy was built like, and I knew we did not want to dance with him. I knew, Anthony, that we had 5 cops there. 3 of us were probably going to go to the hospital, and we're probably going to have to use a high level of force. So I'm talking to him, and he's really, really upset. He's really upset. He's really stressed. He's really tense. I say, listen, man, I got cops coming from about 7 different towns because of how jacked you are. I said, please don't make me embarrass myself when they all get here and say, what, you couldn't handle him? And he kind of chuckled a little bit. He goes, really? You got that many cops coming? and he could hear the sirens. I said, yeah, so can we please resolve this before they all get here? Because, you know what's going to happen. We're all going to go to the hospital, and I'm going to be embarrassed. It's on video. I'm supposed to be, mixed martial arts kind of guy and all that kind of stuff. And my words didn't work. My fighting's not going to work. And he was kind of chuckling a little bit, and then kind of did lower the temperature. We were able to get him to comply with zero violence.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes a little humor, as long as you're not, as long as you know where the line is with that humor. Some
Yeah,
people
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
where the line is with that humor,
yeah.
but as long as you know where the line is, sometimes that can work as well, to lighten the mood for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so that's what I had today. Just kind of, I wanted to talk a little bit of introduction. I figured since I was reading the book and you're teaching it, this would be a perfect match. So I'm going to finish the book this week and get that all done and hopefully start applying some more ideas. And you guys can reach me on Twitter at @eatahoagie. If you want to get a hold of me, I post up there every month about the topic or article we're going to be discussing. And Corey, how can they get a hold of you?
As you see on the bottom there, Corey, www.safetyman.co, on Facebook, SafetyManCO, Twitter, SafetyManCO, Instagram, SafetyManCO. If you Google SafetyMan.co and YouTube, everything should point back to me. And can you change your Twitter name? Because you're terrible for my diet. Every time you say that, I want to go eat a hoagie, and you're killing me, bro. I put on
Well,
my
you know
clothes.
what, man? I don't even I don't even eat meat anymore. So it's just, but people know that I'm from like the South Philly, South Jersey area because it's just a term that's used here. So it's just more of a reference point now than it is actually me eating hoagies. So.
Maybe I'm gonna change mine to eat a cheesesteak because that's like my go-to food right there.
All right. Thanks, guys, for stopping by. If you guys have comments, please drop them down on our YouTube page. Check out our other videos. And if you have comments about something else you would like us to see us do in the future or talk about, feel free to message us or drop it down below in the comments and say, hey, let's check this out, and we'll take care of it. So, all right.
Please,
Thanks, guys. And we'll see you on the next
please.
one.
And remember, SafetyMan.co, if you want to schedule this training for any type of business, we have a program specifically designed for you. We'll chat beforehand. We'll find out what your needs are. We'll find out what your policies are. We'll help you create an entire system from top down. That's a company-wide philosophy that will make you safer. And let me just say this. The fact that we didn't have to fight that guy that I told you about earlier, you know how much of a lawsuit and how much officer injury payment and all those treatment, how much money that saved. It's a small investment in a lawsuit. We know everybody wants to sue everybody today. So if you're looking at it from the administrative side, just remember, $1 million lawsuit more than covers what you would have to pay to have Verbal Judo come out and give you a professional 1 or 2 day course.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Corey.
Got it, brother.
We'll get up next month for the next one. So I'll see you, buddy.
All right, I'm gonna go get a hoagie. It's good.